look, another animated anthropomorphic animal movie. Time for LionDog to make it his whole personality for the next 5 months. So Sony Animation just dropped its latest movie, GOAT, a film that I have been keeping my eye on from its initial trailer. While it looked to be ripe with sports movie cliches and bad jokes, Sony's recent track record and my own biases in filmmaking kept me intrigued enough to see this film a week early. And after watching it, was it worth the hype? You're watching The LionDog Show, and I'm reviewing GOAT. Going into this film, I knew that its overdone underdog plot would likely be its weakest link, and that it would need to rely on its sports choreography and characters to make it memorable. And for the most part, they both work, especially the rollerball games. The way the animals use their traits, including how they seamlessly shift from bipedal to quadrupedal, and the animation effects, both collide to create dynamic sports games that live action could never replicate. As for the animation, there isn't much to say on it. It's the Spider-Verse art style. At this point, you're either super on board with it, or sick of it. Me? Well, it looks great. I mean, great animation is great animation, but at this point, it's no longer the innovative deviation that it was nearly 8 years ago. While I still enjoy the look, I appreciate how the animation team showed some restraint by only pulling out the exaggerated animation effects for important moments, giving those parts the intensity that they deserve. With the way they animate jet driving, Sony Animation really needs to make a Speed Racer film someday. One last note on the animation, if you can, see it in 3D. It really helps the effects pop. Moving over to this film's cast, it's a whole lot of good characters, but no one all that special. Of course, the hallmark character of this movie is without a doubt Jet Fillmore. While by no means groundbreaking, her arc of fearing she's a has-been with nothing to show for herself, and the way her interactions with Will help her look beyond that make her the most compelling character in this film. My only real complaint with her is that I have trouble buying her being on the verge of retirement. Sure, they mentioned her playing the game for 15 years, which could be a long time for basketball stars, but at the same time, she looks the exact same for 10 years. Couldn't they at least give her some patches of gray fur? I'll give it a pass. I mean, have you seen her fits in this film? Oh my gosh. My heart's pounding. As for the rest of the team, they're all pretty likable. The film clearly focuses on Will and Jet, but the filmmakers made sure to give adequate attention to the other teammates. Olivia has a solid arc, especially for the youngsters out there who fall into the habit of listening too much to online feedback. I propose that GOAT 2 should be about Olivia decentralizing her smartphone and constructing her 90s Nook. Moving over to Archie, I ended up liking him a lot more than I expected, and his daughters weren't nearly as annoying as I thought they'd be. And then there's Moto, who might be one of my favorite characters of the archetype of the weird one in the group. These two alone in a room, who's Winnie, let me know down below. The only teammate who felt underbaked was, of all characters, the one voiced by the producer Stephen Curry himself, Lenny. Yeah, he has that one moment with Will during his first game, but outside of that in his rapping career, he just felt kind of forgettable, and his insecurities felt like they came out of nowhere. I guess props to Curry for not making this film into a massive vanity project. And hey, at least Lenny's given an arc, because Will, Will, the main character, doesn't really have much of one. I went into this movie hoping that the other teammates would all pitch into his growth as an athlete, but he pretty much starts the movie at the same skill level that he ends it. The start of the film does a good job at getting the audience to care about his struggle to make ends meet, but that gets solved the moment that he joins the team. Sure, he worries about getting cut from the team, but they don't dwell on that fear that much. You could say that his real purpose is bringing the team together, but no. That's more of the coach's job. And sure, you could say that Will indirectly led to him taking action, but considering how he's treated throughout the movie and how he behaves afterwards, Dennis would have snapped eventually. I guess he has his goal of proving himself to the world and making his late mother proud, which maybe endeared some viewers to him, but it didn't work for me. I feel like there should have been a bit more focus on that side of him. Speaking of Will, I would like to walk back my previous statement I made about Caleb McLaughlin's performance sounding lifeless, as many of those deliveries in the trailer were not in the final film. Outside of the team, Coach Dennis basically took over the second half of the film, and I'm not complaining. Patton Oswalt voice acting is always a treat. They don't hand out the role of Mr. Wigglesworth from The Bad Guys breaking in Season 1, Episode 5, The Webs to Wigglesworth in the Wardrobe to just anybody, you know? As for Flo, we'll get to her later. Main attraction serves its purpose as the antagonist and very little else. Chuck and Rusty are likely receiving very interesting fan art as I'm recording this, and while the Vineland residents in Will's life don't get that much screen time, they're enough for them to feel like characters who exist outside of the confines of the movie's runtime. Overall, the movie's cast lacks the strength of other Anthro franchises, but they do their fair share of supporting this film, and almost everyone gets at least one good joke. Speaking of which, this movie is hilarious. The trailers do not do do this film's comedy justice at all. This might be the most I've laughed at a movie since the original Bad Guys. Not every joke lands, there are definitely plenty of jokes that try way too hard to relate to the youth of this nation, but the jokes that work make it difficult to remember the duds. Something that is not difficult to remember would be this film's overabundance of product placement. Why does everyone in this movie drive a Mercedes? What is this, Mario Kart 8? Now, this is to be expected, as Sony animation movies, despite their recent critical acclaim, are kind of notorious for doing this. Try as hard as you want Olive Garden in the Garfield movie, you will never be Sonic 1.
Because when you're there,
your family.
In this movie, however, it just feels far more blatant. Product placement works seamlessly in most live-action movies since, by their nature, they're usually set in some semblance of our real world, so seeing brands that we recognize makes the world feel more believable. This film, however, is very much not set in our real world, so seeing DoorDash advertisements and Mercedes vehicles end up making the world feel less believable. I've complained in the past about the Zootopia franchise's use of animalized brands, but at least those fit into its world. What about this PlayStation 5 screams, "I was created for animals"? Do you think the PS5 has no games in the GOAT universe too? It's not a complete deal breaker, but it happens just enough for the film to lose some of its integrity. Okay, those are all my spoiler-free thoughts, so if you wish to see the film for yourself, stop watching and come back to this review after you've seen it. Got it? Great, now let's dive into the spoilers. I'm not sure if she counts as one, but Flo might be a candidate for the worst twist villain in animation. While it's somewhat set up with her oozing that sleazy businesswoman attitude, she only really shows up at the start to get Will on the team, and at the end once the selling the team plot needs to happen. She kinda suffers from the same problem as Celine from K-pop Demon Hunters in that the film treats her like she's important, but you don't feel her presence or authority that much throughout the film as she only appears when necessary. Also, some of you in the comments who are more versed in the business side of sports might be able to confirm this, but is it normal to sell off a team without any of the players? I feel like even the most out-of-touch billionaire would realize that buying a team means nothing without the stars who make it valuable. Moving over to the final game. What final game? Well, I can forgive fast-forwarding through some of the team's games. This is the film's climax. All of the slower-paced moments of the film have been building towards this, and they rushed through half of it. This movie feels like the opposite of The Bad Guys 2, where instead of focusing so much on the action set pieces that the movie rushes through a lot of the emotional moments, GOAT concentrates so much on wanting the audience to care about the final game that they forget to give it the importance that it deserves. Also, on the subject of the final game, I really wish they didn't leave the condition of Jet's leg ambiguous. I know that they did that to leave wiggle room for sequel possibilities, but with how the movie focuses on Jet passing the torch to Will, it would have been more impactful to see her step down, having finally achieved her goal, and take over the team with Flo out of the picture. But no, Moto owns it. Look, Moto is definitely an icon, but the last person you want owning a sports team is someone who has admitted on camera that he doesn't even know the rules to the game. Hopefully, they can explore some mature avenues with Jet and her future on the team in a sequel, which I wouldn't say no to seeing. So, those are my thoughts on GOAT, a movie that I really did enjoy, but not as much as I hoped. It's a pretty what you see is what you get kind of film. It doesn't have the thorough world building and commentary of Zootopia, or the outrageous plot points and plot twists of The Bad Guys. It's just a good old-fashioned underdog sports movie, animal style. But then a poster, why don't you? This is still a really good movie that I recommend you see. It's just not a film that will stay with me like the former two have. And you probably shouldn't expect a ton of references to this film in my YouTube videos going forward. Overall, I might have to eat crow on my statement that this would rival K-pop Demon Hunters. This could still be a huge IP for Sony, it certainly has the potential, but it might take some time before it can truly reach the big leagues. You've been watching The LionDog Show, have a great day, and stick around for more.